You sold the condo? But I promised it to my wife. Give me the money from the sale immediately! Devin shrieked those words at me, a rage blazing in his eyes I'd never witnessed before. Behind him, Tasha sobbed, her hand pressed to her chest, like she was struggling to breathe. I simply drew a long breath and stated serenely, "There is something else you should know." The moment I spoke, I saw my son's expression transform. First bewilderment, then dread, followed by that telltale shake in his hands that emerges when a person's world starts to crumble. "But Mom," he stammered, his voice breaking. "My wife and I, we have no place to live. We can't be out on the street." And in that exact instant, I realized I had triumphed. For so many years, I was the one who shook with fear. I was the one who pleaded. I was the one living in constant dread. But that woman is gone. My name is Clara Mae Johnson. I'm 65, and up until 6 months ago, I was completely unseen. Unseen by my son, unseen by my daughter-in-law, and saddest of all, unseen by myself. I resided in a 2-bedroom apartment that my deceased husband and I purchased 3 decades ago. It was far from luxurious. The corners of the walls showed faint water damage, and the kitchen was cramped and dim. But it was mine. It was the only spot on earth where I still felt like more than a ghost. My husband, Thomas, passed away 7 years ago. He died in his sleep peacefully, without a final goodbye. From that day forward, my life settled into a quiet pattern. I'd wake at 6 a.m., brew coffee in the ancient percolator with its peculiar gurgling sound, sweep the floors, and gaze out the window. I would wait, though I didn't even know what for. Devin, my only child and my sole close relative, was my world. After his father's passing, I had hoped we would become closer. I imagined more frequent visits, calls to see how I was, or maybe even an occasional dinner invitation. But that never happened. Devin had his own life, his Tasha, his career, his friends, his ambitions. I was just an item on his checklist, a brief call every couple of weeks, a mandatory visit for Christmas, and nothing more. Initially, I tried not to let it get to me. I reasoned it was the natural order of things. Children grow up, they build their own lives, and I shouldn't be possessive. But solitude is a crushing weight. It settles on your chest like a boulder, pulling you down so slowly, you don't realize what's happening, until you find yourself struggling for air. Devin's visits were always identical. A knock, a smileless entry, and him sinking onto the couch, phone in hand. "Hey, Mom, how are you doing?" "I'm all right, son." "And you?" "Good," swamped, then silence. An awkward void filled only by the chime of his phone's notifications. I'd offer coffee. He never had time. I'd ask about Tasha. His answers were short. I'd try to share a story about my day, the neighbors, anything at all. And his eyes would drift to his watch. He always checked his watch, as if each minute spent with me was a minute robbed from his actual life. But I would smile. I always smiled. He was my son, and a mother perseveres. A mother keeps on trying, even through the hurt, even when she's overlooked. Tasha was different, or so it seemed at first. When Devin initially introduced her, she was all smiles. She hugged me, called me Mama Clara, with a sugary voice, and brought me cheap bouquets from the grocery store. And I, so lonely and starved for warmth, allowed myself to be deceived. I believed I had finally gained another person in my life. The daughter I never had, a friend to talk to. But the flowers soon faded, and so did Tasha's pretense. Slowly, I began to catch the glances, quick, sweeping looks around my apartment when she believed I wasn't paying attention. Gazes that assessed, that calculated, that appraised the value of every object, every wall, the very space itself. And then it dawned on me. To her, I was not a person. I was a roadblock standing between her and her goal. The insults began discreetly. So discreetly that at first I wondered if I was imagining things. One day, Tasha arrived with Devin and remarked, "Mama Clara, this sofa is so dated. You should really think about getting a new one." I explained I couldn't afford it. She smiled and said, "Well, When this apartment becomes ours, the first thing we're doing is a complete remodel. When it's ours, as if the decision had been made, as if my passing was merely a detail to be sorted out. Another time, they came for dinner. I had spent hours cooking, preparing the smothered pork chops my son had adored as a child. Tasha took a single bite and commented, "A bit on the salty side, don't you think, Dev? And my son, my very own son," just nodded, not even meeting my eyes. They left their plates nearly untouched. As always, I said nothing. I just cleared the table in silence as they chatted about their plans, their ambitions, their future. A future in which I had no part. But one moment fractured everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the bathroom when I heard them arrive, unannounced. The sound of their voices in the living room, and something in their tone made me stop cold. It compelled me to listen. "How much do you figure this place is worth?" Tasha asked. "I don't know, maybe 280,000. Devin answered. "With that, we could make a down payment on a real house. A big one!" Tasha's voice buzzed with excitement. "But your mom will never sell, right?" Devin laughed, a dry, cold sound. "Nah, but she won't live forever. And when she's gone, this place is mine. It's the only inheritance I'm getting." Tasha sighed in relief. Thank God. Because honestly, I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending to like her. I felt something inside me break. Something beyond repair. I remained in the bathroom, my hand pressed over my mouth to stifle any sound. Tears streamed down my face. But they weren't tears of sorrow. It was something deeper. It was the disintegration of an illusion. The illusion that my son loved me, that I meant something to him at all. When I finally emerged, they were on the sofa. Tasha smiled brightly. "Mama Clara, what a surprise. We had no idea you were here." A lie. They knew. They just didn't care. Devin didn't even look up from his phone. And I smiled back. I offered coffee. They said no. They left 10 minutes later. I sat on that old sofa they detested and asked myself, when did I become this? A person waiting for her own death just to be less of a bother. The hours crept by after they departed. I stared at the ceiling. The city noises. Passing cars, distant shouts. The wind against the window. Fading into a hum. Sometime in that expanse of darkness and silence, I came to a decision. A decision that would alter everything. I would not wait anymore. I would not remain invisible. I would not surrender my life to someone who was merely waiting for me to die. For the first time in 7 years, I felt something akin to anger. But it wasn't a hot, explosive anger. It was cold, methodical. It was the fury of someone finally waking up. The next morning, I woke up a different woman. I can't quite explain it. It was as if a part of me had solidified overnight. As if all the tears I had cried had cleansed me of something old and weak, making room for something new and unyielding. I rose, made my coffee, but this time I didn't just sit and stare out the window. I retrieved an old notebook from a drawer and began to write. I wrote down every memory, every insult, every dismissive word, every condescending look. I needed to see it all laid out. I needed to grasp just how blind I had been. When I was done, I had covered 5 full pages. 5 pages of evidence that I hadn't been imagining it, that I wasn't oversensitive, that they had truly and systematically diminished me. The humiliations continued. In fact, they intensified, as if Devin and Tasha sensed a shift in me and felt the need to put me back in my place. 2 weeks after I overheard their conversation, they visited again, this time with an agenda. "Mom," Devin began, foregoing any greeting. "We need to discuss something important. Tasha and I are looking at houses. We want to start a family, but everything is just so expensive." I nodded, saying nothing, just waiting. Then Tasha chimed in with that sickeningly sweet voice. "Mama Clara, we know this apartment is way too big for you alone. 2 bedrooms for 1 person, it's such a waste, don't you think? You could find a smaller, cozier place. And maybe you could sell this place to us. At a fair price, of course. A family price. A family price. The phrase was pleasant, but I knew its true meaning. They wanted me to give away my sole asset, the home my husband and I had spent 30 years paying off so they could start their lives without struggle, without the hard work we had put in. I took a deep breath. I'm not prepared to sell. This place has too many memories for me. Devon's face hardened. Mom, don't be so selfish. You won't need it for much longer. At your age, what's the point of holding on to things? You should be thinking about your son, about your family. Tasha nodded, feigning tears. But we were really counting on this, Mama Clara. We've already made plans. Plans? They had made plans with my home, with my life, without even consulting me. And the most shocking part was that they said it as if it were the most normal thing in the world, as if I owed them my very existence. I remained quiet. I didn't fight. I simply told them I would consider it. They left, content, convinced that I would eventually yield because I always did. I always gave them what they wanted. But this time was different. As I shut the door behind them, I didn't feel guilt. I felt resolve. I felt clarity. And I knew precisely what I needed to do. 3 more weeks passed. 3 weeks during which Devon called daily, not to ask about my well-being, but to apply pressure. Mom, have you thought about our conversation? Mom, we found the perfect house, but we need the down payment. Mom, don't make this difficult. Tasha sent texts, long paragraphs punctuated by sad emojis. Mama Clara, I know this is hard, but think of the grandchildren you could have. Don't you want your future grandchildren to have a wonderful home? Every message was a jab. Every call was a reminder that I was just a tool for their desires. And my cold, silent, powerful anger continued to build. Then, the moment arrived that changed my course for good. It was a Friday. I was at the bank for a routine matter when I overheard 2 women talking. A younger one was telling her friend, my mother-in-law finally sold her house. She bought a small condo and used the rest of the money to travel. She said she spent her whole life working for others, and now it was her turn to live for herself. The other woman laughed. How courageous. I could never do that. My family would have a fit, the first replied. But it's her money, her life. Why does she need anyone's permission? Those words echoed in my mind. Why should I need permission? It was my condo. My life, my choice. No one had gifted it to me. No one had paid a cent of the mortgage but my husband and me. Yet for months, I had acted as if I had no right to my own property. As if I owed Devon everything just for being my son. That wasn't love. It was manipulation. And I had let myself be manipulated for far too long. I walked out of the bank with a resolve so sharp it startled me. But I didn't falter. I couldn't. It was now or never. That very afternoon, I researched real estate agencies online, found one with excellent reviews, and made the call. A pleasant voice answered, Good morning, how can I assist you? And with only a slight tremor in my voice, I said, I want to sell my condo, and I want to do it quickly and quietly. The woman asked a few questions. Address, size, condition. Then she said, We can have an agent come by tomorrow for an appraisal. Perfect, I replied and hung up. I sat on my sofa, phone in hand, heart racing. I had taken the first step. There was no going back. The next day, the agent arrived, a man in his 40s with a professional smile. He inspected the apartment, took photos, made notes, and finally said, Mrs. Johnson, this place could fetch around $280,000, maybe more with a few touch-ups. But if you want a fast sale, we could likely get $250,000 in under a month. I nodded. Let's do it. He looked surprised. Don't you want to consult your family first? Most clients, I cut him off. I don't need to consult anyone. This is my decision. He smiled, presented the paperwork, and I signed. A week later, we had an interested buyer, a young couple relocating for work who needed to move quickly. They offered $270,000 in cash. No financing, no hurdles. I accepted on the spot. Throughout this entire process, I told Devin nothing. He continued to call, to pressure me. Mom, have you made a decision? We need an answer. Tasha's getting anxious. And I would offer vague replies. I'm still considering it, son. Give me a bit more time. He'd grunt with frustration but didn't push too hard, confident I would eventually give in, just as I always had. But while he waited, I was signing documents, closing the sale, watching the money appear in my bank account and finding a new place for myself. A smaller one-bedroom unit in a quiet area. It cost $175,000. I paid for it in full. No mortgage, no debt. The remaining $100,000 and change, I placed into an investment account my bank had recommended. The move was swift. I hired a small moving company and packed only what was essential. Clothes, books, photos of my husband. The memories that truly mattered. The rest I sold or donated. I didn't need much. I never had. 3 weeks after making that first call, I was living in my new home. It was small, but it was bright, with a functional kitchen and a clean bathroom. Most importantly, it was entirely mine. No one else had a key. No one else had ever lived there. It was my space, my fresh start. And for the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. But I knew the storm was on its way. Devin was still in the dark, and when he found out, all hell would break loose. So I prepared. I organized all the sale documents in a binder, printed bank statements showing the flow of money, and most crucially, I had secretly recorded my recent conversations with Devin and Tasha. The ones where they discussed the condo as if it were theirs, where they plotted its renovation after my death, where Tasha whined about pretending to like me. I had my evidence. I was ready. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was arranging my last books on a shelf in my new home when the phone rang. It was Devin, his voice unnaturally cheerful. Mom, hey, glad I caught you. Tasha and I want to take you to dinner this Friday. It's been a while. I paused. Devin never ever invited me to dinner. Sure, son. What time? 7. We'll pick you up. And don't worry. It's our treat. I hung up knowing exactly what was happening. They were shifting tactics. The direct assault hadn't worked, so now it was time for soft manipulation, phony gestures of affection, and forced kindness. But I was no longer the naive woman I once was. This time, I knew precisely what to expect. Friday arrived, and I dressed with care. A chocolate brown dress I'd owned for years but seldom wore. I did my hair and applied a touch of makeup. I wanted to look strong. Devin was punctual. He rang the bell of my old building, the one I no longer owned. I made him wait a few moments before I went down. When I stepped outside, he was standing by his car, frowning at his phone. Mom, he called out. What took so long? I was about to come up. I had to get ready, I answered coolly. We got in the car. Tasha, in the passenger seat, turned with an overly bright smile. Mama Clara, you look so lovely. It's great to see you. Her words were sweet as honey, but her eyes were cold as ice. We went to an Italian restaurant. Not fancy, but not cheap. Devin selected a quiet corner table, away from the other patrons, perfect for a private discussion. We ordered our meals. Pasta for Tasha, a steak for Devin. I chose a simple salad. My stomach was in knots, not with fear, but with anticipation. For the first few minutes, they made small talk. Devin's job, a friend's wedding, the weather. I listened, nodded, and smiled when appropriate. I waited, knowing the real purpose of this dinner was about to be revealed. It came just as the entrees were served. Devin wiped his mouth and looked me square in the eye. Mom, we need to discuss something serious. Tasha and I have been doing a lot of thinking. We're worried about you. I looked up. Worried about me? Yes, Tasha said, leaning in. You're all by yourself in that big condo. At your age, anything could happen. A fall, a medical issue, and no one would be there. Devin nodded. That's why we think it's for the best if you either move in with us or sell the condo and get something smaller, safer, and closer to us. Ah, I said simply. They waited. They expected gratitude, relief, the usual submission. But I just took a sip of water and said, That's very thoughtful of you to be so concerned. I'll think about it. Tasha blinked, thrown off. But we need an answer soon, Mama Clara. Devin and I have already found a house. We just need the down payment. And we figured if you sell your condo, you could give us a portion of the money. As a loan or maybe an advance on your inheritance. Her words were so audacious I almost laughed. An advance on my inheritance. As if my death was already on their schedule. And I was just an inconvenient placeholder. I'll think about it, I repeated, my tone unchanged. This time, Devin's body tensed. Mom, we've been talking about this for months. You can't keep putting us off. The anger simmered in my chest, but I held it back. Not yet, I smiled. Son, it's a huge decision. I can't make it on a whim. Just give me a little more time. Tasha sighed dramatically. But Mama Clara, we were really depending on that money. We already told the owner we want the house. If we don't make a deposit soon, we'll lose it. There's no other way. Your condo is our only plan. How convenient, I thought. Their only plan is my total sacrifice. We finished the meal in a tense silence. Devin paid with an irritated flourish. And as they dropped me off, Tasha gave me a frigid hug. Think carefully, Mama Clara. We're not trying to pressure you. We just want what's best for everyone. The following days brought a barrage of messages. Tasha sent photos of the house they wanted. Look, Mama Clara, 3 bedrooms, a yard for future grandkids. Every photo was a manipulation, an attempt to make me imagine a future that would never happen. I knew that if I gave them the money, I'd never see it again. I knew the grandchildren were a ploy. I knew that once I had served my purpose, they would cast me aside. I would not allow it. Devin's calls became more demanding. Mom, I need a yes or a no. It's simple. It's not simple, son. It's my life. It's my savings. But I'm your son, your only family. And you expect me to support you for my entire life just for that? A heavy, dangerous silence hung on the line. So you're saying you won't help us? I'm saying I need time to think. Devin hung up without another word. I stared at the phone, feeling the last thread of love I had for him finally snap. A son who truly loves his mother doesn't pressure her like this. He doesn't guilt her for wanting to live her own life. A week later, Tasha appeared at my old building, ringing the bell relentlessly. Mama Clara, open up. We need to talk. I was about to head to my new condo to pick up a few remaining items. I opened the door cautiously. Tasha's eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. Can I come in? We sat in the near-empty living room. She looked around, confused, but didn't comment on the missing furniture. Mama Clara, she began, her voice trembling. I came to apologize. I know we've been pushy. We're just desperate. Devin and I have been saving for years, but it's never enough. And when we thought about your condo, we were filled with such hope. Hope, an interesting word for greed. Tasha continued. I don't want you to think it's just about the money. We love you, Mama Clara. We truly do. We want you to be part of our lives, to be a grandmother to our children. But we need that house. You could make it happen. You could be our salvation. Her words were perfectly crafted, rehearsed and utterly hollow. If they truly loved me, they wouldn't be asking me to surrender everything. They would just be there. Tasha, I said finally, let me ask you something. If I didn't have this condo, if I had nothing of value, would you still be visiting me? She blinked. Of course, Mama Clara. What a question. Then why, for the past few months, have you only come to talk about the condo? Why does every conversation end with the same demand? Tasha's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The answer was obvious, and she couldn't bring herself to say it. She remained silent for a few moments, then stood. I think I came at a bad time. We'll talk later. She left, leaving me alone in the empty room. But I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. Every lie, every manipulation, only confirmed I had made the right choice. That night, in my new home, I reviewed all my documents. The deed to my new place, the records from the sale, the recordings. Everything was in order. Everything was ready. All that remained was the final confrontation. And I knew it was coming soon. Devin and Tasha were not patient people. and their desperation would lead them to make a mistake I was waiting for. I took a deep breath, sipped my tea, and prepared myself. The war was just beginning, and this time, I had all the ammunition. The moment came 2 weeks later. I knew it was inevitable. That Devin would lose his patience, show up unannounced, and try to force an answer. That day finally came. It was a Saturday morning. I was enjoying a coffee by my new window when my phone rang. It was Devin. "Mom, I'm coming to your place. We're finishing this conversation today. You can't keep dodging us. I'll be there in 30 minutes. He hung up. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding. But not with fear. It was pure adrenaline. I had prepared for this. I was ready. I dressed calmly, put on my shoes, and drove to the old unit. I still had the keys. The new owners weren't moving in for another week. I arrived before Devin, went upstairs, unlocked the door, and waited. The condo was a shell of its former self, with just a few boxes in the corners. The echo of my own footsteps bounced off the bare walls. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall, and waited. 5 minutes later, I heard hurried footsteps. The door flew open, and Devin burst in like a storm, Tasha trailing behind him. "Mom," he began, then stopped short, his eyes widening at the empty space. His expression shifted from confusion to alarm. What the hell happened? Where is all the furniture? Where is everything? I slowly got to my feet. "I sold it," I said calmly. "You sold the furniture?" Tasha asked, her voice shrill. "Not just the furniture," I replied. "I sold the condo too." The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. Devin stared at me, as if the words weren't computing. Tasha went white. "What did you say?" Devin finally murmured. "I sold the condo," I repeated, my voice louder now. 3 weeks ago. The papers are signed. The money is transferred. The new owner moves in next week." Devin exploded. "How could you sell the condo? I promised it to my wife. Hand over the sale money right now." His voice was a raw shout, his hands trembling. Tasha started to cry. "But Mom, how could you do this? We were counting on this place. We had plans. You destroyed everything." I stood my ground, unmoved. I looked them both directly in the eyes. "This condo was mine. It was never yours. And I can do whatever I please with my own property." Devin took a threatening step toward me, his face flushed with rage. "Don't you dare. I'm your son, your only family. That condo was my inheritance. The only thing you were going to leave me?" "Your inheritance?" I echoed coolly. "Devin, you're 38 years old. You have a job, your health, your entire life ahead of you. And you were already plotting what to do with my possessions when I die. That's not a son. That's a vulture," Tasha shrieked. "How dare you speak to him like that? He gave you everything. He took care of you." I let out a bitter laugh. "Took care of me? Tasha, your husband visited once a month and only called when he wanted something. The two of you have spent years treating me like a nuisance you had to tolerate until I was gone." "But Mom," Devin pleaded, his tone shifting to desperation. "My wife and I, we have nowhere to go. We can't live on the street. We need that money. It's ours by right." "By right?" I asked. "What right? The right of being my son? That doesn't entitle you to my life or my assets." Devin ran his hands through his hair, frantic. His perfect scheme had crumbled. "Then at least give us the money from the sale. If it's already sold, you have the cash. Give it to us. We can still buy the house. Please." It was the first time I'd heard him say please in years, but it was the hollow plea of a loser. Tasha approached me. "Mama Clara, please. Think about the grandkids. If we don't have a house, how will we start a family?" "The grandkids?" I repeated softly. "Tasha, you never wanted to give me grandchildren. You wanted to use the idea of them to manipulate me, to guilt me into handing over everything." She recoiled as if I'd struck her. "That's not true. We do want a family." "What happened to the money?" Devin interrupted. "Where is it?" "In my bank account," I replied. "I used part of it to buy a new, smaller condo for myself. The rest is invested for my retirement, for my peace of mind. For me! Devon's eyes filled with pure hatred. You're selfish. A selfish old woman who only thinks of herself. And what did you want me to do? I shouted back. Give you everything and be left with nothing? Live on charity, hoping you'd bother to visit once a year. Tasha was sobbing theatrically. But we wanted you to live with us. We were going to take care of you. A lie, I said firmly. You wanted my money, and once you had it, you would have shipped me off to the cheapest retirement home you could find. Devon shook his head. You're paranoid. You're making it all up. I'm not making anything up. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I have proof. Proof of what? Tasha asked, her voice shaking. Of everything. Of every conversation where you talked about me like I was already dead. Of every plan you made behind my back. Of every cruel thing you said when you thought I couldn't hear. The color drained from Devon's face. You recorded us? I did, I confirmed. Because I had to be sure I wasn't going crazy. I needed proof that you only saw me as a ticket to what you wanted. Devon lunged toward me, his fists clenched. Give me that phone, now. No, I said, stepping back. These recordings are my insurance policy in case you decide to do something foolish. Like what? Tasha demanded. Like trying to sue me? Or declare me mentally incompetent to manage my own affairs? I've seen enough stories. I know how this game is played. Devon let out a humorless laugh. You're insane. Completely insane. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I've just regained my sanity after years of letting you walk all over me. A tense silence fell. We stared at each other, the air thick with rage, pain, and unveiled truths. Then Tasha spoke, her voice cold. We will never forgive you for this. I can live with that, I replied. Devon pointed to the door. Come on, Tasha. There's nothing for us here. She followed, but before she left, she turned back. I hope that money makes you happy, Mama Clara, because it's going to cost you your family. I lost my family a long time ago, I said. I just didn't realize it until now. They left, slamming the door so hard the sound echoed through the empty condo. I stood there alone, but I didn't feel lonely. I felt victorious. I felt free. For the first time in years, I had defended myself. I had said no, and I had survived. I sat back down on the floor, my legs trembling from adrenaline, my heart still racing. But there was something else rising in my chest. A warm feeling of relief, of peace, the feeling of taking my life back. I stayed in that empty condo for nearly an hour, sitting on the floor, staring at the bare walls, processing it all. I had no regrets. Not for a single second did I question my decision. But there was a sense of finality in the air, of closure. This had been my home for 30 years. I had cooked thousands of meals, mourned my husband and grown old in solitude here. And now, in this same place, I had reclaimed my freedom. I stood slowly and walked through each empty room, my fingertips trailing along the walls. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for everything. And I walked out, closing the door behind me for the very last time. When I arrived at my new condo, the difference was stark. Light streamed through the windows. The space was small but welcoming. Everything smelled of new possibilities, of a fresh start. I made a cup of tea, sat by the window, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. A genuine smile, not a forced one. A smile of true satisfaction. I had done something for myself. I had chosen my own well-being over the manipulation of others, and it felt powerful. The phone rang, breaking my peaceful moment. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? A woman's voice I didn't recognize was on the other end. Mrs. Johnson? This is Simone, Tasha's sister. I need to speak with you. My stomach clenched. Simone. Tasha had told her everything. Now came the next wave of attack, an attempt to guilt-trip me through a third party. Go on, I said, my voice neutral. Mrs. Johnson, Tasha told me what happened. And I just want you to know, I am so disappointed in you. How could you do that to your own son? He needed you, and you turned your back on him." I took a deep breath. "Simone, with all due respect, you don't have the full story. You only have the version your sister fed you, the one where I'm the villain. But there is much more to it," she scoffed. "What more could there be? You sold the condo your son needed. That's all that matters." "My son didn't need that condo," I said firmly. "My son wanted it." "There is a very big difference," Simone pressed on, her voice hard. "Tasha is a mess. Devin is devastated. You shattered their dreams, their future. And for what? To buy a smaller place and hoard money you won't even live long enough to spend? That is pure selfishness." I listened without interruption, letting her vent. When she finally paused, I spoke with a calm that surprised even myself. "Simone, I understand your loyalty to your sister. But let me ask you, when was the last time Devin and Tasha visited me without asking for something? When did they last call just to check in? When did they last treat me like a person instead of a bank?" There was an awkward silence. "They have their own lives," Simone finally said, her voice less certain. "Their jobs?" "Exactly," I replied. "They have their lives, and I have mine. And my life does not involve eternally sacrificing myself for their comfort," Simone tried to argue. "But Mrs. Johnson, you're his mother. Parents are supposed to help their children." "I was there for 38 years," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I gave my son everything I could. But there comes a point when children must stand on their own. And if at 38, Devin is still expecting me to solve his problems, then I failed as a mother. But I refuse to continue that failure by allowing him to use me." Simone hung up without another word. I stared at the phone. I knew it wouldn't be the last call, that they would try to use others to break me. But my decision was made. No one was going to change my mind. That night, before bed, I checked my bank account online. The money was there, over $100,000. It was more than I'd ever had in my life, and it was all mine. No one could touch it. No one could demand it. It was my safety net, my freedom, quantified on a screen. I slept peacefully that night. No nightmares, no anxiety, just peace. The following days were strangely calm. I busied myself settling into my new home, buying plants for the windowsills, hanging curtains, arranging my books. Every small act was a reminder that this space was mine, a refuge where no one would come to judge or demand. It was my kingdom. A week later, a long text from Devin arrived. "Mom," it began, "I've had time to think, and I believe we both said hurtful things. I know I've failed you as a son. I haven't been there like I should have been. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. You're my mother. I wish we could talk and sort this out." I read it 3 times. There was no "I'm sorry," no real acknowledgement of the harm. It was just another attempt to get his foot back in the door. I didn't reply. 2 days later, a message from Tasha. "Mama Clara, please don't shut us out. We made mistakes, but everyone deserves a second chance. Devin is doing terribly. He's not eating or sleeping. He wants to fix things with you. Please give him a chance." I didn't reply to that one either. I recognized it for what it was. Emotional blackmail. One afternoon, while enjoying the sun in a nearby park, I saw an older woman on a bench, alone, feeding pigeons. I sat beside her. "It's a beautiful day," I said. She smiled. "Indeed it is." We began to talk. She told me she had 3 children and 8 grandchildren, but rarely saw them. "They're busy," she said. "I don't want to be a burden." Her words struck a chord. "You are not a burden," I told her. "You are a person. You deserve to be treated like one." Her eyes welled up. "Thank you," she said. "I needed to hear that." We talked for an hour. I shared my story. She listened without judgment. When I finished, she took my hand. "You did the right thing," she said firmly. "I wish I had your courage. I'm just so afraid of being completely alone." "Being alone isn't the worst thing," I told her. "The worst is being surrounded by people who make you feel alone." She nodded slowly, as if the words had unlocked something inside her. We hugged, and as I walked home, I felt a new sense of purpose. I had spent so much time focused on my broken bond with Devon. I had forgotten about the rest of the world. That night, I decided to build a new life, one that didn't revolve around my son. I went online and found a painting workshop for seniors. Expression without judgment. Creativity without pressure. I signed up before I could second-guess myself. I was nervous, but also excited, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. Meanwhile, the manipulative messages from Devon and Tasha kept coming. "Mom, please. We're your family. Mama Clara, Devon is considering therapy. He just needs your support. Mom, at least reply so we know you're okay." But I was no longer the woman who could be swayed by sweet words. I was learning that saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a person with boundaries. On Sunday, I got a call from a distant cousin, Brenda. "Clara May?" she said seriously. "Devon called me. I understand your side, but please, consider forgiveness. Family is everything." I took a deep breath. "Brenda, this isn't a grudge. It's a decision not to be hurt anymore. And if family is so important, why did Devon only remember it when he needed something?" She had no answer. "I appreciate your call," I said, "but my decision is made." And I hung up. Tuesday, the day of my first painting class, arrived. The studio was a small, bright room filled with 6 other women, all over 50. The teacher, Miss Eleanor Vance, had a warm smile. "Today," she said, "we're just going to let our hands express what we feel." And so my new life began. At first, the brush felt awkward, the colors a mess, but Miss Vance's gentle encouragement, "There are no mistakes in art, only discoveries," helped me relax. I stopped thinking and just painted. I don't know what I was creating, but it was mine. When the class ended, I felt lighter, as if I had released something I'd been holding for years. After class, a woman named Ruth Baker, with short curly hair and an infectious laugh, invited me for coffee. As we talked, she told me her story. A widow whose children lived far away. "I was so depressed," she said. "But one day I decided that if no one was going to live my life for me, I had to do it myself. And here I am." Her words mirrored my own journey. Ruth became my first true friend in years. 2 weeks of peace passed. But peace, I was learning, is often fleeting. One Friday, a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole. It was Tasha, looking thinner, exhausted. "Mama Clara, please. Just 5 minutes." I hesitated, then opened the door but blocked her entry. "Speak," I said. She took a deep breath. "I came to apologize. Truly. Devon doesn't know I'm here. He's furious, says he'll never forgive you. But I can't live with this resentment. I'm sorry. I understand why you did it." Her words felt rehearsed. "Are you sorry?" I asked. "Or are you sorry you lost the money?" Tasha looked down. "I know you think we only cared about the money. And maybe at first we did. But we're not bad people, Mama Clara. We were just desperate. That didn't give us the right to treat you that way." It was the first glimmer of accountability. "I appreciate your apology, Tasha," I said, "but it doesn't change anything." "But we could start over," she pleaded. "A real relationship," I sighed. "I wish I could believe you. But rebuilding trust takes time and energy I'm not sure I have." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I just wanted you to know. If you ever give us another chance, I'll be here." She turned to leave. "Tasha?" I called out. She stopped. "If you really want to show me you've changed, don't use words. Use actions. For yourself, build your life without depending on inheritances. That's the only way I'll ever believe you." She nodded and left. I didn't know if she would change, but she had at least tried to acknowledge her part. That was something. That night, I reflected on the past month. I had sold my home, confronted my son, set boundaries, started a new hobby, and made a friend. I had reclaimed my dignity, and though I still had moments of doubt, deep down, I knew I had done exactly what I needed to do. I had saved myself because no one else was going to. The quiet rhythm of my new life continued. The painting classes became the highlight of my week. One afternoon, Miss Vance approached me. "Clara May," she said softly, "have you noticed how your painting has changed? At first, your strokes were small, fearful. Now they are broad, confident, free. It speaks of an internal liberation." I felt a lump in my throat. She was right. I had changed. I went through something difficult, I told her. Ms. Vance smiled. "The best decisions always hurt at first, but then they give you wings." Those words stayed with me, gave me wings. That's exactly how I felt. Ruth and I planned a weekend trip to the coast. It was a small thing, but it meant the world. It meant I could make my own plans, that my life wasn't over. When I told Ruth about Devin, she hugged me. "Children don't understand that parents have a right to live too," she said. "You taught him a boundary." 3 months had passed since the confrontation. 3 months of peace, painting, and friendship. But the past always has a way of returning. It was a Saturday morning when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. It was Devin, alone. He looked thinner, unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes. I opened the door but blocked the way. "What do you want, Devin?" He held up his hands. "I just want to talk. No screaming, please." His voice sounded broken, real. I let him in. We sat in the small living room. "Mom," he began, "I came to tell you. You were right. About everything." I raised an eyebrow, surprised. He continued. "These last 3 months have been the worst of my life. Tasha and I almost separated. I had trouble at work, all because I couldn't accept I'd lost something that was never mine." He told me he had started therapy. "My therapist made me see I had treated you like a resource, not a person with your own life. And that's unforgivable." I felt something shift in my chest. "I'm glad you're getting help," I said carefully. Tears welled in his eyes. "I'm not here for the money. I'm not here to ask you to change your will. I'm just here to say I'm sorry, truly sorry, and I understand if you can never forgive me." For the first time in years, his words felt genuine. "I appreciate your apology, Devin," I said, "but it doesn't erase the years of neglect." "I know." He nodded. "I just wanted you to know I finally understand, and I'm trying to be better, for myself." We sat in silence. Then I asked him something I'd long wondered. "Devin, why did you never visit? Why did it always feel like an obligation?" He took a deep breath. "Because you reminded me of Dad, and his death hurt so much. I distanced myself from everything that reminded me of him, including you. I know it's a terrible, selfish reason, but it's the truth." Finally an answer. Not a good one, but an honest one. "I miss your father too," I said softly. "Every day." But pushing me away didn't lessen the pain. It just made me feel more alone. He nodded, tears now streaming down his face. "I wish I could go back," he choked out. "Do things differently. All I can do is try to be better now. If you ever give me another chance, I promise it will be different. But if you don't, I understand." He stood to leave. Before he opened the door, he turned back. "Can I call you sometimes? Just to see how you are, without asking for anything." I thought for a moment. "You can," I said. "But if you ever manipulate me again, there won't be any more chances." He nodded. "I understand." And he left. That afternoon, I told Miss Vance what happened. "You don't have to know how to feel," she said wisely. "You can be hurt and hopeful at the same time." I painted that day with a mix of dark and bright colors, a reflection of my heart. That night, I decided forgiveness wasn't for Devin. It was for me. To release the weight. Forgiving didn't mean forgetting or allowing it to happen again. It meant letting go and moving on. The following days felt lighter. Devin called twice that week. Simple, short conversations. He asked about my day. He didn't ask for a thing. I kept my guard up, but I felt a flicker of hope. Ruth and I took our trip. We walked on the beach, ate seafood, and I laughed. A deep, soulful laugh I hadn't felt in years. As we walked by the water, Ruth took my hand. "Clara May," she said. I'm so proud of you. You are braver than you think. For so long I had felt weak, invisible. But now someone saw me as brave, and I started to believe it myself. 6 months had passed. It was a Sunday morning, the day of our student art exhibition. I looked in the mirror, dressed in a new olive green dress. The woman looking back was different. There was strength in her eyes, peace, dignity. At the gallery, my 3 paintings were on display. The first, dark and gray, was my past. The second, chaotic with clashing colors, was the conflict. The third, luminous with yellows and oranges, was my present, my freedom. Mom. I turned. Devin was standing in the doorway, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. He looked nervous. "You told me about this," he said. "I wanted to come, to see what you've been doing." I saw only genuine curiosity in his eyes. "It's okay," I said. "You can stay." We walked to my paintings. He studied them in silence. "This first one," he said softly, "is how you felt before, right?" I nodded. "And this third one is how you feel now." I nodded again. He pointed to the chaotic middle one. "And this is me. I'm the chaos that broke the darkness, but also pushed you toward the light." His insight took my breath away. "I hadn't thought of it that way," I admitted. "But you're right." He turned to me. "Mom, I've done a lot of thinking. I realized you didn't take anything from me. You gave me something I desperately needed. An example of how to live with dignity. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand." He handed me the flowers. "I chose these myself, just thinking of you." I took them, my hands trembling. "Thank you," I whispered. He stayed for 2 hours talking to Ruth, to Ms. Vance, genuinely interested in my life. Before he left, he hugged me, a real heartfelt embrace. "I'm proud of you, Mom," he said. When he was gone, Ruth smiled. "He's changed, or at least he's trying." "Maybe," I replied, "but that's his battle. My battle is to keep living." A week later, a letter from Tasha arrived. She and Devin had separated. "Thank you," she wrote, "for teaching me that saying no is an act of self-love." I felt no joy, no sadness, just neutrality. Everyone was finding their own way. The months passed. Devin and I spoke weekly. Our relationship was new, healthier, built on respect, not obligation. A year after the confrontation, I was in the park and saw the same woman from before. "The brave woman," she said, her eyes lighting up. I told her what had happened. She took my hand. "You did more than save yourself," she said. "You saved me too. I took your advice. I set boundaries. Thank you." I had made a difference. That night, I wrote in my diary, "Today marks 1 year since I chose my dignity. I learned that love isn't constant sacrifice, that family isn't blind obligation, and that old age is not the end. It's a new chapter. I belong to no one. I am simply me. And that is more than enough. It is everything." I closed the diary, turned off the light, and fell asleep with the smile of a free woman. Did you enjoy my story? And where are you watching from today? Let's connect in the comments. If you appreciated the story, you can support my work by sending a super thanks donation, which allows me to continue bringing you more stories like this. Your sweet support means the world. I'm so excited to read your comments. On the screen, you'll find 2 more life stories I highly recommend. There is so much more on my channel, so don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story, with love and respect.